What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, two-time unified British heavyweight world champion Anthony Joshua, in a recent interview he did, stated that if he could put hands on anybody and his dream fight, his dream matchup would be that of former undisputed British heavyweight world champion, legendary boxer Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis, in his career, had 2 losses and 1 draw on his resume. Lennox Lewis finished his career 41-2-1, right? 32 by way of knockout. And those 2 losses that he had at the hands of Hasim Rahman and Oliver McCall, Lennox Lewis avenged those losses as well. Now he had 1 draw on his resume. That came at the hands of Evander Holyfield. And that was a fight that I clearly thought Lennox Lewis won. And even in that fight, he came back and won the next fight, right? With Evander Holyfield. He won the rematch. I thought Lennox Lewis won the first fight clearly, and he clearly won the second fight. With that said, Lennox Lewis is a legend in the sport of boxing. Lennox Lewis, if you don't know, Anthony Joshua didn't take too kindly of the constructive criticism Lennox Lewis laid out. And since then, Anthony Joshua has been poking at Lennox Lewis, throwing shots at Lennox Lewis and disrespecting Lennox Lewis, right? So Anthony Joshua just lost to Andy Ruiz Jr. Now, Lennox Lewis was knocked out by Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. But in those fights, those were one-punch knockouts that Lennox Lewis clearly let his guard down in those fights, and then allowed them, he laxed in the fight and they capitalized on it, point blank and period, right? So with that said, Lennox Lewis is an all-time great heavyweight, right? Top 5 greatest heavyweights of all time, right? And he had some constructive criticism for the approach to the sport by Anthony Joshua, who's a fellow countryman, right? Anthony Joshua took it as hate. Anthony Joshua takes it as disdain towards him coming from Lennox Lewis. So ever since then, Anthony Joshua has some choice words for Lennox Lewis, and he continues to poke at Lennox Lewis, right? And now, in a recent interview, he's saying that that would be his dream matchup. It would allow him to put hands on Lennox Lewis. Anthony Joshua is sadly mistaken. Anthony Joshua, has been saying some things about Deontay Wilder, former WBC reigning heavyweight world champion, and now he's calling out Lennox Lewis, right? And here's the thing. Anthony Joshua on his best day couldn't defeat Lennox Lewis. Anthony Joshua is not on the level of Lennox Lewis. By no stretch of his imagination, no stretch of the fans' imagination, and no stretch of anybody else who believes that he can compete with Lennox Lewis' imagination. Lennox Lewis would dominate Anthony Joshua. Lennox Lewis had a beautiful jab. He was mobile, and Lennox Lewis had more power than Anthony Joshua. Okay? Lennox Lewis was a knockout artist, right? But Lennox Lewis had the boxing ability like no other, right? Lennox Lewis would box Anthony Joshua's socks off, and Lennox Lewis would knock Anthony Joshua out. Lennox Lewis never had stamina issues. The only issue Lennox Lewis had was having lax moments in his fights where he got stunned and knocked out by Oliver McCall, Hasim Rahman, and a few other people, stunned Lennox Lewis in his career. With that said, Lennox Lewis jab, Lennox Lewis technical abilities, Lennox Lewis approach to the sport, Lennox Lewis would dominate Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is too stiff. Anthony Joshua is not as fluid as Lennox Lewis. And Anthony Joshua doesn't have the power, nor does he have the ring IQ of a Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis would dominate Anthony Joshua. Now, I feel like Anthony Joshua is letting his pride get in the way. I feel like Lennox Lewis is, Anthony Joshua is, his pride and his, testosterone and, that's getting in the way and clouding his judgment, right? And don't get me wrong, as a fighter, if you feel slighted by another man, you're going to want to fight that man. But, to say that now that Lennox Lewis is his dream fight because it would allow him to put hands on Lennox Lewis. Obviously, Lennox Lewis is retired. Lennox Lewis is, far past his prime. You know, Lennox Lewis is 54 years old, you know, and he hasn't boxed in years. But Lennox Lewis is 6'5". He came in the ring at 260 pounds. He was one of the first legitimate super heavyweights, right, for his era. 6'5" and better. Him, Riddick Bowe, and Buster Douglas, you know, they were considered super heavyweights, 6'4" and better, right? Weighing over 240, 250 pounds. But Lennox Lewis was more skilled than those fighters, right? So Lennox Lewis started the super heavyweight, you know, era in which he reigned supreme, right? And so Anthony Joshua, 6'6", 200, came in his last fight, 240 pounds, you know, a little less than 230 something pounds, I believe he did, you know, but yes, and he's a gold medalist, but Anthony Joshua cannot match Lennox Lewis' skill set by far, not even close. It's not even close, right? He would box Anthony Joshua's socks off, and then he would knock Anthony Joshua out. Now, some people would say, well, Lennox Lewis was chinny. Lennox Lewis didn't have the best chin in the world. Yes, he got clipped. It's the heavyweight division, and yes, he was staggered a few times. Yes, we saw him knocked out. But in the manner Andy Ruiz knocked out Anthony Joshua was totally different from Lennox Lewis getting clipped with one punch and getting knocked out. Anybody could get clipped with one punch and get knocked out. Lennox Lewis got caught with a one punch by Hasim Rahman and Oliver McCall, and you saw what happened in the rematch when he avenged those rematches. He made Oliver McCall quit, and he knocked Hasim Rahman out in a classic dramatic fashion, right? He was beating Vitaly Klitschko at a late stage in his career, who people couldn't even compete with Vitaly Klitschko. And look at the level Lennox Lewis competed with Vitaly Klitschko. And at the time he competed, he was at an older age, right? So Vitaly Klitschko, after that, you know, still dominated the heavyweight division, right? There's people that felt like Vitaly was better than Vladimir. So, you know, that was Lennox Lewis' last fight, and back in 2003, right? You know, and he didn't fight after that, right? He got the TKO victory over Vitaly Klitschko. You know, Vitaly Klitschko has retired with only 2 losses on his resume, that Lennox Lewis and Chris Bird, right? But Vitaly Klitschko was an absolute monster, and he stood 6'7", right? I thought Vitaly, he wasn't as fluid as Vladimir, he wasn't as athletic as Vladimir, but I thought Vitaly was the better fighter. He had the more sturdy chin, and he had the harder punch, right? And his jab was better than Vladimir. Vladimir was just more athletic with it, right? So he was quicker. He was just more fluid, more athletic. So people always, you know, people always are drawn to the flash and the flares, right? But look at the moment where Lennox Lewis competed with him. He was past his prime, right? He was older fighter, and he still beat Vitaly Klitschko. Opened up that nasty wound over his eye, right? And people said, well, Lennox was on his way to getting knocked out. You could say the same thing for Vitaly. Lennox's punch is what opened up the cut over his eye. So with that said, you know, Anthony Joshua couldn't compete. We saw with Anthony Joshua how he competed with a 40-plus-year-old Vladimir Klitschko. He was dropped in the fight. He was nearly knocked out. Vladimir Klitschko was slightly younger with a little more stamina. He wasn't able to close the gap and let his hands go all the time because he was older. He came off a 2-year layoff, nearly a 2-year layoff to compete in that fight. So he just couldn't let his hands go, right? But he nearly knocked out Anthony Joshua. So Anthony Joshua barking up this tree, you got, I mean, and obviously this is all virtual because this can't happen, right? It's all, you know, fantasy, but it's not, because it's not going to happen in reality. But you just compare the careers, it's not even close. Lennox Lewis will knock out Anthony Joshua. And Anthony Joshua needs to check his ego at the door. You know, Lennox Lewis has said that he reached out to Anthony Joshua. He tried to help Anthony Joshua. And Anthony Joshua's pride and the testosterone is not allowing him to let it go. It's just constructive criticism, point blank and period. But him saying that he would wish this was the fight he could have to push hands on him, that's not the tree he wanted to bark up, because Anthony Joshua would get knocked out. Point blank and period. He's nowhere near the fighter that Lennox Lewis was. But that's all I got for y'all. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, or one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.